welcome back to Redmond Reviews. This is a very special edition of Redmond Reviews. I, of course, am Chris Garlock, and with me, as always, Michael Redmond, 99 Professional. Good morning, Michael.
Hi, Chris.
So we just finished our first two-part Game 10. I hope folks enjoyed that, and hopefully you're recovered from that. Before we launch into the next batch, we wanted to just sort of take a little bit of a break, and we've been getting lots and lots of feedback and comments. So first of all, thanks to everybody for watching, and thanks for all your comments, and be assured they are all read. And so we're not going to try and answer all of them, but we found some that we thought were interesting and I wanted to take a stab at. And one of the ones that kept coming up over and over again, Michael, was a question about Comey. In this particular batch of 55 games now, White has won more than one might expect, and so people are saying, should Comey be rethought? So what's your take on that?
Well, first of all, I think some people were thinking it was 6.5 points, so I should say it's 7.5, and it's the Chinese rules. And so, and they just can't have 6.5. That has to do with the fact that the Chinese rules and the area counting and Japanese, the territory counting is different. So having it as 7.5 helps avoid most of the differences in the win-loss result between the Japanese and Chinese systems. So it's 7.5. And actually, I was told by someone in Wujiang, in the chat when Kache challenged AlphaGo, that the win-loss result with all of AlphaGo's games was not that lopsided. Like, it was very, very small, much smaller than we thought, like less than 1% difference.
Okay, so because we're really just looking at a subset of a much larger number of games.
But nonetheless, I would say that most pros do think that 7.5 is a big Comey. And Japan and Korea are sort of up to 6.5 points, and I don't think we're going to expand the Comey to a larger size after that. I think most players would agree that 6.5 is big enough. So it is a big Comey, and also I have this theory of my own that maybe AlphaGo in this version, in this Kache version, is not so good as with black as it is with white. Because AlphaGo is, it's not as if it's playing a perfect game. It is sort of making guesses in the beginning and getting better and better at judging the result later in the game. So in the opening, it's just trying out moves that look good to it. And I don't think it has the human idea. Humans have this idea that with black, we have to play aggressively to take advantage of the initiative and to make up for the Comey. And with white, we try to avoid that outright fight and make up for the Comey by keeping the game, use the Comey correctly, you might say.
Right.
And so I don't think AlphaGo really has that idea in it. And looking at its games, I get the feeling that it's not as good with black as it is with white. So that could be part of it.
Fascinating. All right. Well, great questions, folks. Thanks for those. And thank you, Michael, for an illuminating answer, as always. All right. On to our next question. It's a really interesting question, actually. One of the most common moves in human games early in the game is the slide. And yet we don't see that in the AlphaGo games. And so folks have been asking what's going on with that. Why doesn't AlphaGo play the slide?
Okay, well, there's two answers to that question, really, because AlphaGo doesn't think the slide is a good move, apparently, but actually it does play it in some positions. So I'm going to start with the board we have here and show you a bit of an opening, something like this. This is an opening that AlphaGo played with itself a few times, and something like this. This is an example, actually, of a position in which AlphaGo did play the slide. It's in the lower right corner, and AlphaGo plays this slide. Now, to talk about the slide in general, I would say that usually AlphaGo doesn't think the slide is very good. And I'll start from White's viewpoint. From White's viewpoint, White has the option of playing from above with, for instance, a move like this, or playing from the side with a move like this, or a move like this. And otherwise, if white wants to, white can play from the corner with a move like this. So the moment black plays the slide, white has a lot of options. But also, white doesn't have to immediately deal with it, usually, because playing the slide, even if white plays away and black plays here, we can see that sliding stone, that stone, I'll mark it, on the second line is a bit inefficient. It would be nicer to have this stone on the third line up here. So it's not the perfect shape for black. And so in most positions, when black slides, this would be an opportunity for white to play away. And as the game develops, white will have a lot of choices to play from the side or from above. Depending on how it turned, white would have a lot of choices here. And that's the human judgment. And that's why so many human games, when black plays the slide, so many people play away with white from white's point of view. And so we got that far, but AlphaGo actually takes it one step further and says, because of that, black is giving white too much freedom with this slide.
I see.
And actually, in most cases, AlphaGo thinks that the side or the center is going to be bigger. Mm-hmm. And so it's saying that instead of the slide, black should be playing something like this, which will force white to make a decision right now. Like white cannot really play away in this case, because the next move would just be next move would be something like this. It would be much more impact on white.
Sure.
And so white has to make the decision now on whether to take the corner, which would be, for instance, something like this would be taking the corner. There was a game where AlphaGo played that. Or taking the outside would be a move like this, in which case white is taking the outside. And AlphaGo has to immediately make that. As white has to immediately make that decision.
I see.
So black is forcing white to make the decision now, when the side and the side and the corner are about the same size, hopefully. And so this is now I'd want to talk about the exception. In this case, it's the fact that there's this white stone on the side already, which is reducing the value of a move here. And so that's why AlphaGo apparently thinks it's okay to play the slide. And so actually this is, we're up to game number 10 now. I think this game where it plays the slide is going to be fairly close, like something like 13. There's a game 11 also, I think, where it plays the slide in a slightly different position. So there's one or two games where it plays the slide. But it needs a special situation to make it possible, because usually it feels that the moves from the center or the side will be too big, and that's why it doesn't like to play the slide.
So just want to be clear, I think what you're saying, or what you've said, is that this actually could be an example of AlphaGo kind of pushing us, up in some ways. That there's been a lot of human research on this, but the slide is still very popular. But we probably need to rethink that, right?
It's sort of one step ahead of the human theory that white can play away from the slide. Like it was a few decades ago when people started to play away when black played the slide. Until then, it was almost automatic for white to be playing. Answering in the corner.
Sure.
But for the last few decades, white has not been answering in the corner because we realized that it's not really necessary to do that immediately. And so AlphaGo is sort of taking that one step further and saying the slide itself is not good.
We can just forget about the slide entirely.
Well, as I was saying in some other videos, I think that AlphaGo can change its mind. So we don't really know for sure. Maybe in a few versions, it will start playing the slide again.
Okay. All right. So now that we've definitively answered that.
Yeah, it's certainly worth thinking about and understanding that it sets a higher value for the moves from the side.
Okay. All right. So our next question is from game 5, and it has to do with the next move. And one of the folks wanted to know whether this next move is a strange move or just a strange looking move. So
okay, so it's this move, the Kakari. And I did say it was a strange looking move. Basically, it's a Kakari, so it's very normal. Like you're supposed to play the open corners and then play the Kakaris, but you're also supposed to finish your Joseki. And this is what black is not doing, because this being the joseki move on the upper side, you're supposed to finish the joseki here, and actually that is what is unusual about this move. Like the kakari in itself is perfectly normal. Right. It's the next move after you play the open corners, and it's in general it's supposed to be bigger than a play towards the side, but that's when you say that, you're usually counting these joseki as a kind of a set of moves that are together with each other. So this extension would be the natural follow-up from black's approach move in the upper left corner. So this would all be a set of moves that you're expected to play. And so what I find interesting about this is the fact that AlphaGo almost never plays this extension in the middle of the side after that joseki in the upper left. Like there's maybe one or two games of the 55 games in which it does. And those are unusual positions. Like they're positions where you might see some necessity to play that move, but usually it doesn't play it. And so that's the interesting part, I think. And it's looking at that black group on the upper left when it plays away like this. It's saying that that black group is not weak. And if white pincers, then black's going to play something like this maybe and start a fight. Maybe play out to the center, and it doesn't mind. It's saying that this group is strong, and it really likes playing this jump out into the center, whether it's this point, or sometimes it can be 1 point to the left at this point at A, but it just really likes this move, and apparently it thinks it's about the same size as whatever is happening on the upper side. So that's something that I don't fully understand, but it's one of the differences between AlphaGo and human players at this point, that it doesn't play that extension on the upper side. And yes, there was another question about this move also, wasn't there?
There was, yeah, it had to do with, let me just check here, C14 is not a good position, should be a D15 instead.
Yeah, I think that was something that Gosegan said, and it's very Gosegan like. Gosegan just loved this move.
Yes.
And so he would say that if white plays high, then that would give white a nice pincer. It could be here, it could be one closer to the black stone, that is. But when white plays a pincer here, obviously it's better to have that stone on the fourth line like this. Right. And so this is what Gosegan was talking about. But of course, with Gosegan's comments, you have to be very careful, because he's the same as AlphaGo in that, and most professionals to a certain degree are like that too. He's talking about a particular game position, so it's a board position. One stone in a different place would change everything. Like even stones that seem to be relatively out of the picture, like this black stone in the lower right corner. If it was on a 3-4 point, he would be saying something different. If this stone was on a 3-4 point, he would be saying something different. And so everything changes just with one stone in a different position. And so, and then sometimes he'll change his mind even in the same position. So it's very hard you have to have your own understanding of what Gosegan is telling you. And you have to be very careful of the entire board position. So I'm not really sure how that works out with this book that someone has seen, in which Gosegan is saying the Kosumi is better. It is better when you assume that white's going to play a pincer here, but of course in the game, white is not going to play the pincer. White plays away.
Gotcha.
And so in that case, it's okay to have it on the third line.
Got to pay attention. Okay, so our next question, it's really not a question so much as is a comment. A lot of folks, of course, have been loving all of the deep commentary, but not surprising, because this is the internet. They love your puppy.
Oh, yeah.
I just got to say, they love your puppy. So is your puppy on hand? Can we get the puppy to put in an appearance?
Okay.
There we go. There's the puppy.
And
what's the background on the puppy?
This is Choco. We call him Choco. And he's about 13 years old. So I guess he's getting pretty old now. And so he's getting a bit slow. And I have to pick him up instead of him jumping up on top of me now. And he's a miniature dachshund. So really small dog. And yeah, he likes me because I have a big lap, I guess, compared to the rest of the family.
He seems when we've done the commentaries, he just sort of wanders around and every once in a while just sort of wants to be in on the action, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a cat. I don't think we're going to have an appearance by my cat, unless she may sleep over on the couch from town to town. And if I picked her up, she would be very annoyed, and it would not be.
It wouldn't be pretty, huh?
It would not be pretty. You know my cat. You remember my cat.
Yeah, I remember your cat.
All right. Well, thanks for dropping by, Choco.
Yeah.
Hey, all right. Our next question is from Game 6. We actually have several questions from Game 6. The first one is the infamous triple Kama.
Yeah, that would be this move.
That would be that move. Yes. So, how many nice moves do we have here? 5 nice moves.
5 Kamas. And so someone said that this was a beautiful move. And I can see someone saying that. I don't think the person had the who it was, but yeah, it does look like a beautiful move, beautiful shape. Of course, that's not really the point. The point is whether it works or not. So that's what I was talking about in the commentary. But in this case, Black is looking at the attachment in the corner later, like this move. Moving into the corner. Sometimes when Black plays here, Black is going to be thinking about, since White plays here, it happened out this way. But like if White had been doing something like this, for instance, then Black would be playing an attachment in the corner. And so this kind of stuff, since Black has some potential to make a ko or maybe a life in the corner, Black's trying to play this forcing move from the outside. So in that way, it's a good move. Working well with the outside stones and making a nice light shape. So it's working as a move in the context of Go also, as well as being sort of visually beautiful.
It's always nice when you get a double value there where it works and it's beautiful. All right, then there was a question from a little bit more along in this situation having to do with life in the left-hand corner, lower left-hand corner.
Yeah, that was the question about B6. So that would be, let's see if I can get it. That would be this move.
Yes.
So Black plays here and White answers. And as I said, we're left with a ko in this corner. Because White can play a hane here. Let's just go through it. And there's this thing that can happen, and it's going to be a ko. And so the question was, why did Black play that move when there's this ko in the corner? So why not play this move at B1? And that's a great question because this is alive. But the problem is that now White is not going to answer here. White doesn't need that move anymore. Because it's hard to really say where White's going to play away. But for instance, if White plays here and Black plays here, then this cut is going to be forcing, and because the corner is going to die.
Right.
So it's the impact of this cut is much stronger here. So Black has to answer it, and White gets to capture the 2 stones. So it makes it very easy for White to handle this. And so the direct answer is that White just does not have to play directly in that area. And something on the lower side is going to be very big. Like if White plays this pincer and Black plays something on the outside and White plays here, we can see that Black's shape is getting, that beautiful knight shape is going to turn into something less beautiful now. Right. And if Black plays on the top, then White gets to play something on the side. So I'm not exactly sure that I'm playing the best move for White, but something like this is going to happen on the lower side, and it's making a big difference. Whereas in the actual game, Black, for the time being, took Sente and was able to play this extension on the side. So there's that difference of the tempo. It's a 1 tempo difference.
Gotcha.
And it didn't seem to bother Black very much that the corner was a ko. And neither side played that ko anyway. So
it bothered you, though. You kept talking about it the whole commentary. It's just
well, it's because the status of that group changed depending on how the surrounding fighting went on. It was really interesting to see it change from a ko to being alive and then changing back to a ko and stuff like that.
I wanted to rename this the vanishing ko.
The vanishing ko, yeah. It did vanish at one point.
It did, but then it reappears. So anyway, good questions, and of course, good answers. All right, we will go on to our next question. So, Michael, you are going to love this this next and final question for this special edition, because it's a Go history question, and folks, of course, know that you're a big student. So this is from Rick Rubenstein. Ever since AlphaGo hit the scene, I've wondered what it would think of Shusaku's ear-reddening move. Is it actually as brilliant as history has made it, or would AlphaGo say, I have a few better options?
Okay. Well, I already have the position up. Okay. This is a position where white has just played this jump on the lower side to try to attack black in the center, and black plays this move. And this looks like a move that AlphaGo would play, actually. I think AlphaGo would like this move. And it has 2 or 3 meanings. First of all, it's stretching out a hand towards those black stones in the center of the board. I'm talking about these black stones here. So these stones here, which are weak, they're stones that black doesn't really want to be running away with, because black would be in danger of playing a lot of dame points. So they're kind of a heavy group. And by playing this move in the center of the board, for one thing, black is preparing to save the stones, but also black has the option of just throwing them away and allowing white to take them on a small scale. So it's this move is already, just in itself, it's reducing the value of those stones and making them relatively light for black. And also it's sort of there's this big wall that white has on the right side of that, which is not going to be working very well once black has this stone in the way. And we see black's moyo, black has a territory on the upper side, and with this move is stretching out into the center. So this move is really taking control of the center. And this game between Gan and Shusaku, it started badly for Shusaku. Gan started with one of his secret new moves. He had this new move in the lower right corner, and it turned into a great success for white. So the game was looking good for white, even if you don't have, there was no komi, but even so, it was looking good for white. But after this ear-reddening move, it became very difficult for white to finish black off. And the misconception people actually have about this game is that they think that maybe Shusaku won the game with this one move, but that's not true. Actually, this is the move that sort of muddied the waters and made it very, very difficult for white to win. But black was still had a very difficult game going. So after this, the game gets very confusing and very exciting. And there's this big fight in the middle of the board, and and it was going on very late in the night. And I think Gan was getting tired, and they were getting maybe even a bit emotional because it's really, really confusing. And finally,
sounds like an AlphaGo game.
Yeah, well, and then Shusaku pulled away in the end game. So maybe it was a reversal. So I don't think you'd have that in most AlphaGo games, but he turned the game over actually much later in the game. It was when Shusaku actually did have a win.
But remind folks of why it's called the ear-reddening move.
Well, there were a number of Gan's students who were watching the game, and since white had been ahead throughout the game, they were all fairly confident that Gan would be winning.
Right.
And so they were studying the variations. And then there was one of these, you would call him an amateur nowadays. He was one of the people who were basically, he was a sponsor. And so he was not such a strong Go player, but he was actually a doctor. And he went into the room and he looked at Gan. Gan Inseki was very red in his ears. He had red ears. And So the doctor said that he looked so upset, he's probably going to lose the game. And he went out and he told all those pros who were Gan's students, he told them, you know, Gan's going to lose this game. And they didn't believe him. And so that's the story where the doctor, who was actually not such a strong Go player, he called it at this point, just seeing at about the point where Susaku played this move. And so that's why they call it the ear-reddening move.
It's a great game, but you know, it's so funny because of course I've seen this game, you know, a million times, but you know, it was a great question from Rick, so thanks for that. But I totally agree that definitely looks like like an AlphaGo move. You know, that totally makes sense.
Well, yeah, it's one of the reasons that people were so are so excited about this move is there's an area of the board which is it's difficult sometimes to find the best move. And it seems pretty clear that Susaku did do it in this case. And so that's why people are so happy about this move. And why I think it's a kind of move that AlphaGo does a lot. So AlphaGo is very good at playing in the middle of the board. And I think it's better than most humans. But I think in this case it would agree with Susaku's move.
Very cool. So we have a hundreds of year old move, you know, blended with AlphaGo. Love it. Love it. So, all right, good stuff. We really hope you've enjoyed this first edition of Q&A with Michael. So first of all, thank you, Michael. It was terrific.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Just want to remind folks, we are continuing for the foreseeable future on our Friday releases. So look forward to those and definitely keep those comments coming. Again, we do look at them and we plan to do more of these, and we'll be looking for things to respond to. So we appreciate you watching. We appreciate your comments and questions. And Michael, as always, wonderful to spend some time with you. Thanks for this, and onward to the next 10 AlphaGo games.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, take care. Thanks for watching, folks.